Welcome to this week's episode of the Xchange Zone podcast, the bridge between sports and life, where we talk to former collegiate, world-class, and professional athletes about the lessons they learned competing that they use in their life right now. Get going. Hello, family. We want to welcome you to the Xchange Zone podcast. It's the bridge between sports and life. And you know, in the Xchange Zone, there's one thing we are familiar with. This baton right here. And what do? We make sure we don't hear this sound, because when we hear that sound, we are disqualified. When we're disqualified, we can't win because we can't even complete the race. So remember, in the Exchange Zone, let's make sure we stay connected. We're here in this podcast today again with another brilliant athlete, former athlete, still current athlete, brilliant mind, thinker, Miss Shana Summers. Welcome to the Exchange Zone podcast. We thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, James. I'm happy to be here. Excited to chat and just dig into anywhere that we decide to go today.
Well, we're going to have some fun. You know, we're here to help our audience, help our people understand how sports and life have this correlation. And you being a former athlete, and I think you still do some things. We'll get to that in a second. But how that has impacted your life and to where you are now. So we don't want to waste people's time. Let's just jump right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how sports started, where it came from, where it is now, maybe what your favorite sport is, even if it's one. What we're discovering, though, is people end up even becoming professionals in sports that may not even be their favorite. So we want to hear from you. You know, sports, where did it start? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I am presently the senior manager for external communities at HubSpot, which is a large tech company. And I run the Spot community, which is a community for Black and Latin entrepreneurs. So I use HubSpot's resources to help them grow their businesses. And previously, that was not the path that I planned on taking. That didn't plan on being a community builder or leader or anything that I've historically been doing in the last 10 or so years. I started off as both an athlete and a musician. And so I had been playing sports since I was young. If you talk to my family, they always say you had too much energy. We had to get you outside. I did gymnastics, I did dance, I did swim, and I came into soccer, and soccer became my thing. And it was slightly out of pettiness in a way, which is hilarious to think as an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, that was my decision that I made. My older brother, he's 6 years older than me, and we grew up in a town where basketball was it. Basketball was everything, and he was one of the top basketball players in our town. And my last name is spelled Sumers. So Summers with just one M. So when I was going through school, everybody knew that I was his kid sister. And I'm tall, I'm long. I look like I'm a basketball player. And everybody was like, you're going to play basketball. You're going to be like your brother. You're going to do this. And I said, joke's on you. I picked the exact opposite sport. And that was truly the reason, was because everyone expected me to be a basketball player. I played on some teams for fun, and it just never stuck, but soccer did. And so I played soccer through most of my college career. And on top of that, I balanced it with being a musician. So it was always a mix of trying to find time in my schedule, first off, but also trying to balance how to show up for my teammates as well as showing up for my bandmates. And that was always the back and forth that I did, but never had to give up either until college. And then I had to move away from soccer. And I think that was one of the hardest decisions was, do I continue my soccer career or do I continue my music career? As that was the plan. I was getting my degree in music. I went on to be a music therapist, but sports always stuck around. It became the way that I made friends as an adult. And at one point I lived overseas. I got my master's degree in Australia. And that was, again, the way that I was going to make friends. So I went back and I played soccer again. Unfortunately, I hit the thing that every soccer player hits, and I tore my ACL while I was there. So when I moved back, it was a lot of rehab, a lot of focusing on just getting back to some sort of physical confidence, I think is the best way to put it. And I ended up moving to San Francisco to start working in tech. And while I was there, somebody reached out to partner with the company that I was working with for a flag football league. And that was how I got introduced to flag football. I went out and said, "Oh, this seems fun." And it was a bunch of women who were playing, and I said, well, let's go out and try it. I got a couple of my coworkers to go out and play. And once I started playing, I have not looked back. Now I play on multiple flag football leagues, co-ed, women. I travel for it. I also, in the last year, started playing women's tackle football, which was something I never thought I would be doing. I play tight end for the Chicago Winds in the WNFC, which is a national women's national football conference. And we had our first inaugural season, and we finished 5-1, and we were the first inaugural team to make it to the playoffs and broke a bunch of records. It was a great time, and it's interesting to see how going from soccer into football, because at some point I also rejoined a soccer league and said, this is a lot of running. I don't think I can run like this anymore, but short sprints where we get to sit and talk in between every play
Yeah.
and then I get to go out and run again, I can do that. Let's do that. So that's kind of how the sports journey has taken. And I think football has shifted to being one of my favorite sports, but I am a big fan of mainly women's sports. No offense to the guys, but kind of all offense to you. But in terms of like women's basketball, women's soccer, and then getting involved in football, those are probably my top three sports. Journey.
What? Yes, that's exact. What a journey. That felt like a soccer match right there. That's a lot of ground covered. A lot of ground covered. Okay, let me ask about music real quick, and then we'll get back to this sports thing. What instrument or instruments did you is proficient? Is that the word? Did
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that you become proficient in?
Yeah, so I majored in percussion, so I can play
Okay.
any and every type of drum, percussion instrument, things like that. That was what I played through school,
Okay.
was percussion and drums. I was on the drum line. So Drumline the movie, there's a lot of parts that I
Yeah.
can play
Okay.
and do all that. And then while I was in school, I also had to learn guitar, piano, and voice. So I am also proficient in playing those as well.
Okay. Question. What are the similarities between a band, orchestra, a music group, a team in sports? Are there any noticeable, uh, observable things that just stand out in similarities? Because when people think musicians, they just think, okay, you're a musician, you do that. When people think athletes, they think, you're in athletics, you compete, whatever. But are there any commonalities, anything you notice that are similar between the two?
There's so much. I think
Okay.
a lot of people think it's completely different, and it's really not. I think the mantra that a lot of people know, probably again from the movie Drumline, one band, one sound.
Right.
That's exactly how you move as a team. You
Right.
can't have one person showing out and not working together. Everything is a team mentality, and it's the same when it comes to a band or an orchestra. You're in there rehearsing or practicing for hours on end. Sometimes it causes you to have a mental breakdown because of how much work you have to put in and how much time you're
Yeah.
putting in, but you're working with a group of people to move seamlessly. And that shows out for musicians in terms of the song that's being played. You can't
Hmm.
have somebody who's overpowering the music. You can't have somebody who's going too slow or too fast, because then it messes up the whole piece of the song. It's the same
Yeah.
with the sport. You can't just have the one star player handling everything, because they're team sports. You have to be able to work together. You have to understand your routes. You have to understand the plays. You have to put in the work just like everyone else is. Nobody gets any special treatment. We're all in this rehearsal or this practice together and putting out a product at the end of it. And there's plenty of competitions and things that musicians go into, just like for sports, you're going out for tournaments. And at the end goal, you want to be at the top. So you want to be the best. You all have to work together to be able to do that. All of it runs the same, but it's so funny to be in the environments and how everybody thinks it's so different. And I'm like, no, we're actually just doing the same thing, just in different ways,
Different
but it's
arenas,
the same stuff.
literally
Yeah,
different arenas or
literally different
venues.
arenas.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So then let's take that into the where you are now. This teamwork philosophy, because if you work for HubSpot, which some people have heard of uh, as a CRM or on the tech side, but there's teamwork that goes into that. But each person still has their role to play. So then let's make the similarities between that and what you're doing outside of your world famous football career right now.
Yeah, with work, I think any company that you work at, especially if you work at a big company, HubSpot is over 10,000 people.
Hmm.
strong. And I've worked at startups before, and the key things that stay the same is that you're not going to be able to get any of the work done by yourself.
Okay.
You have to work with other stakeholders. You have to bring other people in. You have to get them to believe in the mission that you're working on. You have to dedicate time and energy to the folks. You have to build those relationships. Those are all the same things that you do on a team, where you're going to come in and you're going to build relationships with people. You're going to bond with them. You're going to learn about them. And all of that has to happen in any job that you're working in. So that connection piece that you have to make at work carries over from the field into the office. And sometimes people are going to disagree. Sometimes you have to go about it in different ways, but I have to rely on a lot of people to get a lot of different things done. My team was very small at the peak of it. Like I think there's three of us total, and now I'm at the point where it's just me. And so for that, I have to lean on other people to be able to get things done. But how am I leading? How am I communicating? How am I making sure that they understand what's going on is the same way that you would communicate on the field or as a coach to make sure that everybody is successful in the goal that you have.
I don't think people quite understand how valuable having that experience, especially, competing through college and post-college, how valuable that is in the workplace, how valuable it can be. Leading, following, teamwork, adaptability, adjusting, all those things that you brought from your athletic career to now. Uh, and you're right. I don't think people recognize that. They think it's more different, but it's probably more similarities than anybody would even think.
Hmm.
And then in the workplace, so you still compete with, I guess you said you're doing soccer and football, but does competition show itself in the workplace at all?
Oh, of course. You know, there's so many goals that people are trying to reach,
Okay.
and it's it's like your own motivator to be like, how much more can I do? Am I just going to meet the goal, or am I going to exceed the goal? Am I going to do it this way? Am I going to launch something different? And because I've done that different thing compared to this person doing this thing, like I don't think in a lot of workplaces people are hoping for the other teammates' demise by any means,
Mhm. Right.
but they are working to perform the best. There are still rewards. There's still competitions that happen. There are still, um, people that you're trying to impress. And so the mindset stays, especially if you were a former athlete. It's like you're taking away what you had off the field and being like, okay, now this is my field. This is my arena. This is where I play. And so how can I go and do the best? So there is still that competition. And a lot of times it can be self competition as well. Like, what are the ways that you're trying to just level up what you're doing? How can I make what I did last year better this year? How can I make it more efficient? There's always inherent competition, just I think without so much of the I hope the other team loses, but knowing that this is helping to make the bigger organization win at the end of the day.
So with you being part of a team, both athletically and musically, and in the workspace now, how do you build trust in the teams? How do you galvanize the team? Did anything come from your role in soccer, and since you're so versatile and such a talented individual for music, or the field, or the field soccer or football, that you can bring now that helps you become a better teammate or a better leader or galvanize or any of that kind of stuff? Did anything come from those that you can share with us?
One of the things that I feel is my superpower is my relationship building skills.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Knowing people personally and understanding what makes them tick, what makes them work. Um, I think I kind of mentioned this, but I did major in music therapy. And so I wanted to do that because it was a crossover between music and psychology. And I had a huge interest in psychology. I love how people work, I love how people think.
Okay.
And that was a big thing that I really wanted to do as soon as I got out of school. And going from music therapy into community building for my career was just such a natural transition
Mhm.
because I do genuinely care about people. And so taking those extra steps to just learn about folks' day-to-day lives, not just what they're doing at work, but knowing what makes them tick, understanding what's important to them, what happens when they turn off the computer screen and they get to go home and hang out, who's their favorite team,
Yeah.
being able to know those things and developing relationships with people is always going to be the number one way to get anywhere. whether you're networking, trying to get a new job, trying to get somebody to buy into your project, if they're bought into you and you're bought into them, it's a beautiful
Okay.
relationship. And I think people forget that when they come into the workplace and they're just like, you have this skill, I need you to get this job done, instead of, hey, has James had a rough week this week because he's having something happen at home? How can I support him? People go much harder for those folks. Think about it for coaches. Any of the coaches that you cared about, those are the people that took personal interest in you. They rooted for you. They worked with you after hours to make sure that you grew your skill and became better. The teams who do well consistently have a coach that they would run through a brick wall for. And that's the same as the people that you work with, the managers that you work with, the CEO of the company who you may only get to engage with once a year, but we're bought into their mission, we're bought into their message, we're bought into them as a person. Those relationship building skills, that trust, the transparency, those are all things that you have to be able to have. And I think that's the thing that I have taken into account as the most important thing in any workplace that I go to. And that's how I've been able to like build those relationships to be successful.
Did that come from, was that innate, or did that come from somebody who, a coach from your past, or a conductor from your past, or an instructor from your past? Where did that come from? Because I mean, you're spot on. You can't argue with that. The great brands have it figured out. The great leaders have it figured out. But where did that come from? Did somebody do that to you and you're like, I want to emulate that?
I've always grown up around people, like large crowds of people. My mom started working at my school when I was in third grade. So that meant I was staying after school all the time. I was hanging
Okay.
out with teachers, other students. I was always in activities. I think my parents would describe it as I've always just loved people from the day I was born. And then the older I got and the more activities I was in, I was always in giant group settings, from soccer to
Okay.
um, band, all of that. I was always in group settings, but I was always very observant as well. I am hyper vigilant on how people move, if their moods shift, things like that. And that can come
Yeah.
from so many things. But I think just being around so many different personalities and being able to kind of be malleable to how their personalities show up. And I was also very patient with a lot of people because, as one of the only women on a drum line, I have to deal with these big guy personality, like think teenage boys personality things.
Yeah.
And to be like one of the women there, it's like, oh, I could sit here and passively let
In that
them
setting,
do
it's hard being
whatever.
one of the boys. I mean, teenage
Yeah.
boys are just the
Or
worst.
I could just be one of the boys or do this. But I was like, no, I am going to show up in the space as myself and I'm going to do the things. And I get garnered a lot of respect that way and just continued to build it. But I really just enjoy people and I enjoy learning about people, which was where that interest in psychology came from, and just understanding the different ways that people think and how they move. But yeah, I think being in group settings all the time and on different teams all the time definitely did that, because there was a period where I was multi-sports throughout the year. I ran track. I was on the step team. I did all of these things. So it's just you're in different spaces having to deal with different people all the time, that I just really took to paying attention to how folks worked and how I wanted to interact with them as well.
Okay. So then you talked about, you tore your ACL. You were in, was it Australia? Where were you?
Hmm.
In Australia. So that's kind of a struggle. That's a hurdle. That's a something to overcome. How did you overcome that? And did that help you in the workplace when, let's just, things happen. We can't be, everything is not ice cream and cookies every day, all day. So there's some things.
Hmm.
So did setbacks or struggles in athletics help you as you entered traditional workspaces? Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it was really funny because the timing of when I tore my ACL was the time that I was trying to decide if I was going to stay in Australia and live there or if I was going to move back home. And, shout out to Obama when he raised the age of when we could be on our parents' health insurance. And that was the reason that I ended up deciding to move back. And that was actually really hard for me because it felt like a failure, that I
Okay.
couldn't stay in the place that I had ended up and loved it. And I was like, I have to come back home. Now I'm living at home, not really doing anything mobile. I can't get hired because I worked with kids at the time. And if I can't be mobile and chase kids, I can't do work. So there
Yeah.
was a lot of self motivation that I had to have to get back to at least being able to function in a work environment. And that was already motivating. But then you deal with the other mini hurdles of, say, I tripped over something and my whole leg cramped up. And I was like, oh, I thought I made progress. And now I feel like I'm back to square one, even though I've made so much growth. And so I think each time I've been able to reach a new growth moment within like my recovery
Uh,
was a moment that I also had to balance any of the work that I was doing.
mhm.
Um, and as I feel like as I have gotten more into sports again, like adding to the leagues that I played in, jumping into tackle, things like that, it went back into each of the core things that I had to do. I had to manage my schedule, I had to be able to manage my energy, had to remind myself to like share these wins and successes at work to show that like, hey, this is what I'm doing outside of work, being able to carry that knowledge onto the field as well as taking anything that I've learned on the field back into work. And I feel like each time I'm making a career pivot, whether I've been promoted or getting a new assignment or taking a new job,
Yeah.
my sports career has somehow aligned with it, but I feel like it's also the thing that keeps me very balanced and humbled as well. And I appreciate that a lot because sometimes work can feel like it's the end all be all. And then I go out on the field and I'm like, no, actually, I have teammates who are going through this stuff and people are doing this and I can relax. Like I can calm down and guess what? I can take all my energy out here and then be able to go back into the workplace. So I feel like just the path of healing with my leg
Hmm.
and the pivots that I've made in my career have all kind of aligned. And I feel like that's like poetic justice in a way.
You talked about these teammates and the a great band, a great team, sports wise, and a great corporate team, corporate workplace team. They're all about the same in terms of personalities, in terms of uh, what what makes success, what drives success, who's valuable, who's everybody's valuable, but who knows their role. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that you've been on a lot of teams. There's a reason why you continue to be in these team environments because I think, as you've stated, there's more commonalities uh, than differences. When it comes to uh, let's deal with the word preparation really quickly. Preparation. How did sports, how did being an athlete help you in terms of preparation for where you are now? Or what does preparation mean to you?
Yeah, I think I'll answer I'll answer the latter first. When it comes to preparation, I feel like people look at it as one goal that you're trying to attain. And here's your path, and you're going to get to that one goal. But I think preparation also should be a factor in terms of having to make pivots.
Okay. All right, let's
And
let's let's
that's,
let's dig into that. Help me with that.
yes. So when we're doing projects at work, there's a lot of things that we always like title them as blockers. There's a lot of things that are going to come up that may block you from doing maybe the fastest or the easiest or the most efficient way that you want to go. And it can be other people, it can be team's time, it can be budget. There's so many things that can come and get in the way of you and reaching that goal. So, how are you prepared to deal with those blockers? And a lot of times that
Yeah.
means you have to be prepared to pivot. It's the same thing that you would do on a field where sometimes you're like, yeah, this is our chance to make it to state or this is the chance to win a national championship. But as we go along, maybe you got a small tweak in your ankle. That's going to put you off for a few weeks, which
Yeah.
means that you have to recover and do that. You know what? Our game plan is not working. Instead of continuing to do that same game plan, we're going to have to pivot. Does that mean that you have more of a role or less of a role? And are you
Yeah.
okay with handling whether or not that's happening?
Yeah.
And that's the same for in the workplace. There's always going to be pivots and possible setbacks. And if you're prepared, that means that you have the mental capacity to understand how to make that pivot, how to see
It's good.
a bigger vision, how to be able to be creative in what you're doing, how to stay motivated. There are all of these different ways. And I think preparation really means have you done the work to be prepared for the pivots?
Wow. That is so good. You're talking about a blocker. All I could see is you getting the ball down the field and somebody comes and get in the way and try to cut you off, and we do run into those. And so what do?
Mm-hmm. And
We have to
sometimes
figure
those
out.
people that pick you up and slam you to the ground, and you're like, cool, I can't breathe for a few seconds. How are we going to make this comeback so that that doesn't happen again? And that happens at work too. Sometimes you go in to do a presentation that you were set and you're like, man, this is going to be the best presentation I've ever done. Y'all get ready to high five me afterwards. You go in there and you bomb it
Yeah,
in the worst way. And then you're like, okay, I got to make a comeback from that. Or I have to figure out how to best shift the narrative and or figure out a new way to do something immediately. And you're still reeling from the blocker taking you out, you know?
right,
And you
right.
have to be able to like make that comeback or figure out new ways to do that. And say you do that as a person who is in charge of a team, like as a manager. It's same with a coach. Coach can come after a really terrible game and be like, all right, how am I going to motivate my players for the next game? It's the same thing for a manager where it's like, hey, maybe that presentation didn't go well. Maybe that event didn't go the way that we wanted to. What are the ways that we are going to now shift and make sure we can do it better next time? How can I make sure that people stay motivated and don't get down on themselves so that we can continue to move forward and see a path forward? And that is all in the preparation that you do as a coach, as a manager, as a person to be able to understand that not everything is going to go perfectly. Here are the other opportunities that we can work on and make pivots to hopefully drive success in the future.
Motivation came up quite a bit, which is a great segue before we get ready to get out of here. So, Howard, how do you self motivate, stay motivated? What are some things, some tricks, some triggers we use? Because every day is not I'm 100%. So what are some things that you do to get motivated, stay motivated when you're spiraling? How do you stop and then get yourself back on the right track?
Yeah, I do rely on people a lot.
Okay.
So before I used to, and I realized that this was never helping me, but a lot of times when I was struggling or was having issues, I would just keep it to myself.
Hmm.
And it almost became like one of those things where it was like a secret. And anytime you hold on to secrets, secrets end up having more power than you expect them to. And they always end up that way.
Okay.
And so now I've started to speak up way more when I am having issues and I rely on people. Like I have some of my teammates, and mind you, you don't have to say this to everybody. Pick your people.
Right.
But
Right.
there are
Right.
people that I have that I can sit and be like, when I'm feeling this way, I go to that person, I talk it out, or say I'm like, you know what, I'm not even motivated to go to this workout today. Maybe I just play sick and do whatever. And they'll be like, you know what, instead, I'll come pick you up.
Wow.
We'll go together.
Yeah.
So I really do rely on my community. But when it comes to myself, one thing that I have appreciated consistently is that I am a very consistent person. I think that's
Hmm.
one of the things that my coaches have always said. And things that I've gotten feedback from people is that I am very consistent. And so I try to aim for consistency and knowing when I'm going to do something. So a lot of times, say you're trying to get in the gym, you're like, you know what, I want to get in the gym 5 days a week, but you don't block off time
Yeah.
to get into the gym. So that was how I started off my gym journey again when I was getting serious for tackle football. And I was like, okay, I'll work out in the evening this day, I'll work out in the morning this day. But then when I wasn't motivated, I was like, no, I gotta go. I'm not gonna go to the gym. That's fine. That's fine. But now, if you look at my calendar, every day at a specific time is blocked off.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
go and I get my workout on. And then I've started to also ask myself questions when I'm not motivated to do it. I stop and ask myself, hey, when you went yesterday, did you feel better? And every time I'm like, okay, anytime I go to the gym, I could start going in there with the most negative attitude, but I always come out feeling better. I may have died during the workout, but afterwards, I'm like,
Right.
I feel better. It is done. That is a thing that is checked off my list. And so
Yeah.
now I start asking myself a lot more questions around if you don't do this, what's the replacement?
Ooh.
If I don't do this, what opportunity would I be missing if
Yeah.
I didn't do this? Is there somebody I need to lean on right now to be motivated to be able to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think a lot of times people do set very larger than life goals for themselves to be like, I'm going to run the fastest I've ever run, or I'm going to lose the most weight I've ever run and done that. I like to set really realistic, tangible goals.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
hey, my
Yeah.
goal is to make it to the gym every day this week. and based on your schedule, sometimes you're traveling, you have kids, things are going on. I'm like, okay, let's be realistic. What are the ways that I can feel successful by the end of the week and
Start back and
be
back.
able to like move forward from there? And
Yeah.
then one of the last things was there's this podcast I listened to called She's So Lucky. It's a former coworker.
Okay.
Her name is Les Alfred, and she's amazing. And she does this thing where she's like, what is the one extra thing I can do? Like you've
Okay.
gone through your day, you've done your thing. Say you come home and you're like, all right, I've cleaned my kitchen, but I don't feel like cleaning the whole house. But what's the one extra thing I can do? So I'll be like, all right, well, I cleaned the kitchen. Let me go ahead and just like clean off the couch. And now I feel better.
Yeah. One, just a little
And
bit
that may
more.
help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I put that to my workouts. I put that to any of the work that I'm doing. I'm just like, what is that little bit of effort that I can do to just feel a bit better and go from there? So it's a lot of mix of community, asking myself a lot of questions, and just remembering doing that little bit more if I can.
That's probably what makes you a great teammate is you rely on the teammates. So then teammates rely on each other. And so you can pick up where
Oh
someone
yeah.
else is lacking. And when you're a good teammate, you tend to have good teammates, work, sports, wherever.
hmm Yeah, my top statistic when I played soccer was my assist rate. I was more proud of how many passes I made or how many were passes that led to goals than I was of my own like goal scoring rate, which was also high. But man, I wanted to set the record for assists. I wanted to do all the things for assists because I was like, no, I'm helping my teammates
Yeah.
make sure that we reach our goal that we were hoping for. So that's
Yeah.
always been my thing.
That's good. Real quick, if you could tell your younger self or young athletes, give them either to yourself or to young athletes who may be listening, what a couple things you would share with them as they're in this journey?
Your connections are going to be your pathway to success. The number one thing, don't treat anybody differently because they are at a title that you think is great or that they're in a certain position. You want to treat everybody from the top of the office all the way down to the people who are helping to manage your equipment. You want to treat everybody with respect, but take that extra time to build those connections with those people because you never know when that is going to benefit you in life, whether it's community people who invest in you, folks on your former teams, your coaches, fans that come to every single game. You never know when those people are going to pop up in life, but being able to treat them with kindness, respect, and truly investing in them is going to take you much further than you know.
Love it. Canada, yes. One what facts or however they do whatever this is. Yeah. All of that. Yeah, that's the T. Yes, 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 yes. I have a mantra that everybody's your customer. And so we have to we're dealing with that. Okay, let's get ready to get out of here. A couple of quick steps. Um, what is one word that describes how sports molded you?
Hmm. One word described how sports molded me. I would probably say growth.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think each of my sports journeys, there was some sort of issue or something that I had to always deal with. It was never just like a let's move through this and it was a smooth X amount of years.
Yeah.
There was a time where I had to switch teams going into my senior year and wasn't expecting to do that, especially because that was when I wanted to be recruited. I've gotten injured at pivotal points of the season. I've had shifts in leadership that have caused things to move. So it's
Yeah.
always been a bit different in each way. And I would have to say that the the patience that I had to have, and then I'd say growth to be able to just be like, all right, I'm gonna take this in, understand what's happening, and then move to the next thing.
Okay. Growth. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. A couple more. Uh, so as a musician, you had a playlist then, and you have a playlist now. Two-part question. Has the playlist changed? And what would somebody be shocked that's in your playlist that they wouldn't expect from you?
Oh, yeah, the playlist has definitely changed
Okay.
because I listened to so much music. So it's like it's always every year it was probably very different besides like the staple always being Beyonce. Beyonce is
Okay.
always on a playlist. So
Okay. All right.
she has stuck around. Um, but the thing that would be surprise, I think, especially for friends now, like yes, I think people don't know as much that I was a musician. And
Okay.
so all of a sudden we'll be out and I will hear an orchestral piece
Castro.
and I will be able to say like, oh yeah, that was this piece of number whatever, and it was this, and I'm like, ah, and like, or they'll see me do like as a percussionist, our hands are always moving. And so they'll see me do like the random notes or hit certain pieces that are like beautiful and there in the moment. And my
Yeah.
friends are just like, why do you know that? And I'm like, oh, I had to play that a lot at college. So I think just like the way that I appreciate orchestra pieces
Yeah.
is probably something that a lot of people don't recognize. And like I will listen to them when I'm working and things like that. I don't do it often, but at times, yeah, it's still I can bust out a name and they'll just be like, why do you know this? So that's probably the most surprising thing is just like the knowledge of orchestra pieces has stayed locked in there.
Yes, I'm sure that would catch a lot of people off guard. One last one. What's the mantra or quote that you live by?
What's meant for you won't miss you. It's one of my
Like
favorite
that.
ones.
What's
One
meant
of
for
my favorite
you,
ones.
what's meant for you won't miss you. This has been just brilliant. Is there anything that you want to share with us that I may have missed, that we may not have discussed, that you think our audience would want to hear? You have your own podcast, I do believe.
I do. Yes, yeah. So I am a public speaker as well. So I mentioned that I worked at HubSpot full time, but I am also a public speaker. I talk about basically helping folks build impactful, valuable connections and how to do that to help develop and grow your career. So if you ever need somebody to come and speak on that, please hit me up. You can find me at shanasummers.com
That's
and
one
email
M.
me
Shana Summers with
one
one M.
M.
Remember, one M.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. Or you can find me at Shana Be Talking on social media. And then, as you mentioned, I do have a podcast that I do for fun. It is great. And it's called Bad Queers Podcast. We basically talk about breaking stereotypes in the queer community. We've had some really awesome guests on the show, like Lena Waithe, Bob the Drag Queen. We've had some folks from Queer Ultimatum on, things like that. And so it's very fun conversation about Black queer experiences. So if you want to check us out, you can listen to us everywhere that you listen to podcasts, Bad Queers Podcast. You can watch us on YouTube or you can follow us on social media at Bad Queers Pod.
Shana, thank you so very much for joining us in the Exchange Zone. One thing you did not do, you did not drop the baton. It stayed connected. You gave us some great insights, some great intelligence. I
Yes.
enjoyed our time together. Wish you nothing but the best. And audience, you heard her. If you need her, go find her. Until next time, make sure we stay connected.